Welcome to Lesson 8. Before we begin, a quick note about this course. These lessons are designed to be listened to in the background while you work inside DxO PhotoLab on your own computer. Think of them as guided audio lessons that you can follow along with at your own pace. If you prefer more visual screen-recorded tutorials, you'll find plenty of those on my channel as well. Also, DxO PhotoLab is free to use for 30 days, which gives you more than enough time to work through this course and see if it's a good fit for your workflow. If you decide it is, I'm offering 15% off DxO software, and you'll find that link in the description below. Now, make sure you have DxO PhotoLab open. In this lesson, we're going to look at contrast. Contrast is one of the easiest ways to add impact to a photograph. It controls the difference between the bright and dark parts of an image. Increasing contrast makes bright areas brighter and dark areas darker. Reducing contrast makes the image appear softer and flatter. Before we begin, let's locate the controls. At the top left of DxO PhotoLab, click on Customize. Then, look over to the right-hand side of the screen where you'll find the editing palettes. Open the Light palette. Inside that palette, you'll find the main contrast controls we'll be using throughout this lesson. Let's start with the standard contrast slider. This affects the entire image. Move it to the right and the photograph becomes punchier and more dramatic. Move it to the left and the image becomes softer and lower in contrast. For most photographs, small adjustments work best. One mistake beginners often make is pushing contrast too far. While it can look impressive at first, excessive contrast often causes photographs to lose detail and look unnatural. Next, let's look at microcontrast. Microcontrast is one of DxO PhotoLab's most useful tools. Instead of affecting the whole image, it increases contrast between small details and textures. Think about stone walls, tree bark, clothing, hair, leaves, or textured surfaces. Increasing microcontrast can make these details appear more defined and three-dimensional. A simple way to think about it is this. Normal contrast affects the entire image. Microcontrast affects the detail within the image. Used carefully, it can make photographs look sharper and more detailed without actually sharpening. However, like any tool, it's possible to overdo it. Too much microcontrast can make skin look harsh and can exaggerate noise in darker areas of a photograph. For portraits, I usually use microcontrast very carefully. For landscapes, travel photography, and street photography, it can often be very effective. Now let's look at fine contrast. Fine contrast works on even smaller details. It focuses on very fine textures and subtle edge definition. You can think of it as a more delicate and refined version of microcontrast. Where microcontrast affects larger textures and structures, fine contrast works on the smallest details within the image. This can be particularly useful for bringing out subtle detail in architecture, landscapes, and certain types of product photography. Again, subtle adjustments usually produce the best results. One of the things I like about DxO PhotoLab is that these controls allow you to guide the viewer's attention without making the image look obviously edited. A simple workflow might look like this. First, adjust exposure. Second, adjust white balance. Third, add a small amount of contrast if needed. Fourth, experiment with micro contrast to improve texture and detail. Finally, add a touch of fine contrast if the image still needs a little more definition. The key word throughout this lesson is subtlety. Small adjustments often create the most professional-looking results. For this lesson, open a photograph with plenty of texture and detail. Try adjusting contrast first, then experiment with micro contrast and fine contrast individually, so you can clearly see the difference between them. Once you understand how each control affects the image, you'll be able to make much more informed editing decisions. In the next lesson, we'll look at noise reduction and deep prime, one of the most powerful features available inside DxO PhotoLab. Don't forget to subscribe to Simon DxO for more tutorials, and if there's something you'd like me to cover in a future lesson, leave a comment below and I'll do my best to help. I'll see you in Lesson 9.